Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Today is October 27th, and this is another of our monthly bug scrubs for Kustomize this time. Our host will be Katrina, although I'll be sharing my screen to help her with this. So take it away from here, Katrina.
Great, thanks, Maciej. Before we get started with the triage board, does anyone have an issue that they wanted to highlight for us to take a look at in particular? Not hearing anyone, so let's just dive in with that first one. Doesn't actually look familiar, and we haven't looked at it in a year apparently. So let's get this one taken care of here. Runtime for strategic merge patches is roughly 5 times.
I looked at this like a month ago. So the commit they're talking about parses the open API schema to get namespace ability. And I merged a PR that basically undoes that commit. But they're saying that the performance is still bad. So yeah.
Okay. So that column sort thing is not doing what I expected, I guess.
Yeah, so it seems.
Improvement. So are you still working on this? I guess it's showing up on the board because we didn't ever triage it formally with the label.
I'm not working on it, or like I don't know what's causing the performance degradation. I haven't looked into it.
Yeah.
Although someone else on another issue that I'm linking to the chat said that they would take a look, but that was 21 days ago. And I don't know if they're still working on it, but I could try to follow up with them.
Okay.
Okay, you can assign this issue to me. I'll respond and link the other issue.
Okay, I will do that. All right, what do we have next? Actually, already replied to this one this morning. I haven't had a chance to work on this yet. The problem is apparently the YAML v2 library that Kustomize loads the customization with. And so we lose the quotes up front before we even have a chance to do anything with them. So that's going to be a thorny issue. But I accepted it because I agree with the author that like there's nothing they can do to avoid this problem when they're using Kustomize other than changing results. There's a possibility that the solution would be in kubecontroller be in the YAML library itself, but I don't think it's something the end user could solve for themselves, so I accepted it.
Yeah, isn't that something that we...
And I guess the dashboard just...
Yeah, isn't that something that we already covered a couple of times? I think there's at least that's like third or fourth issue where we're discussing the topic of integers lose the quotes during the conversions.
Yeah, I think it's come up both like this issue came up in a previous bug scrub, but we didn't actually triage it, so it came up again. Well, today I guess it's the cache isn't refreshed on the board, and I think it's also come up in a kubectl bug scrub separately. Like there's been a separate issue that is more generic about where we say to quote the strings manually as a workaround, but this is saying, well, in Kustomize I can't do that. So they're two extremely related problems. Oh, weird. This looks like we actually, that I responded and probably in a previous bug scrub because it's about a month ago. I'm just gonna close it, I think, because it was a support question and I answered it and they haven't replied in a month. So I'm just gonna close. Yeah, we already covered this one in the last bug scrub too, but we hadn't triaged it because Jeff is taking care of all the anchor issues. And I know Jeff and I were both very busy with KubeCon, preparing for KubeCon, being at KubeCon, recovering from KubeCon. So I imagine he hasn't had a chance to dig in and confirm this one as well, though it's very likely a real issue. The anchor expansion is something released shortly before the previous bug scrub. It's a relatively new feature for us. Well, restored feature. Really old versions of Kustomize supported it as well.
Maybe worth it. Do we have it confirmed that this isn't actually a problem, or we're still waiting for Jeff to confirm that?
If I remember correctly, I confirmed this one. I think I sent everything to Katrina on Slack. I can move it to here.
Yeah, if we have
Okay,
it
I see on
confirmed,
the issue that you confirmed there are two issues about this, one about anchor tags that we retitled this to match, and then there's another one about integer keys, which is actually the same issue that we just, you're confirming that the second issue, the integer keys, was the same as as the other ticket, but I don't know if anyone, did you also confirm the merge problem?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Okay, let's just accept it then.
Okay, I'll move everything over there.
More anchor and alias issues. Oh wait, is this the exact same one?
I think he opened several of those because he is pointing at the anchor support, similarly to the other issue.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if the author is the same. No, that's a different
No,
author.
it doesn't. And that's back to the original error before we were supporting anchors. Okay, yeah, it's the same as the other one.
Okay, I'll move my comments over, but I'm catching up on it. So the test was changed too. So there was a test that looked for this and we changed the test at one point. So this is an actual issue.
Okay. Yeah, I wish Jeff was here today to ask him if he's had a chance to look at any of these follow-up issues for the anchors. Because he was taking care of this problem. It seems like a bunch of the issues are going to be related to that. I'm hesitant to accept it without confirming manually, but I also don't really doubt that it's a problem because of how new the support is. Maybe let's just leave it for Jeff to take a look.
Yeah,
and
that
move
seems
on to the next
reasonable.
one. Interesting. I guess they want the plugin merged into kustomize, otherwise why would it be an issue?
I think he's just requesting to have a plugin for Kustomize supporting this particular functionality. But I guess that's it would be reasonable to point him to the plugins repo that you're setting up for Kustomize, and just explain him that he's open to create those plugins, and he can just add it after he's done with it to the index. That's at least how I'm reading this.
Yeah, I guess another thing that we'll need to point out is that we're deprecating Go plugins specifically. We added after our KubeCon presentation, or before it rather, a bunch of new docs explaining which plugin mechanisms are deprecated and how to do the various, how to build for the various mechanisms that we intend to continue supporting. So that's something that, yeah, I'll assign this to myself to respond in more detail. Natasha, you worked on the Helm chart feature a lot. What do you think about this one?
I'm hesitant to add more support for that feature just because we've been talking about removing it.
Is there a potential alternative approach that he can take to solve his problem that we can point him to instead of using the Helm chart inflation generator?
It also looks like, well, the field Helm chart inflation generator is already deprecated. Maybe the Helm charts field that replaces it supports this, but I'm not sure. This wouldn't be that hard to support, I think. I can take a look. You can assign it to me. I'll look into alternatives.
Okay.
Yeah, and make sure to explain that the Helm chart generator is deprecated.
Yeah,
It's definitely worth repeating if people haven't noticed that before.
yeah, will do.
That user, they can concatenate their YAML files in like a bash script or something like that's. But if changing it from a single item to a multiple items is easy, then
Mhm.
At the same time, yeah, we want to be really careful about supporting every single thing that Helm can do. So it's meant to be a simple integration, not to be able to do everything under the sun.
I think also changing it from a single item to a sequence item is technically backwards incompatible. So we'll have to think about that.
There are also other Helm generator implementations. The one that we built in is not the only one. So that's another thing we could, I don't know, Natasha, if the one that kept built would support this workflow.
Yeah, I can point them to that one if we're okay with that.
It's part of the power of the plugin system we're using is that they are interchangeable. So if somebody else, if they would be okay with using the one that was built for kept, it also works with customers.
Okay. Sounds good.
Ideally, we would be pointing them just to that common repo that we're working on, but it doesn't exist yet. All right, what's this one? There's a lot of detail in this issue to absorb.
the first thing that jumped out to me is merge all is always complicated because how do you prioritize order, right? So I don't know if that won't matter to them for this, but that like something's going to overwrite something. Like how's that going to work?
I'm wondering why they're ending up with multiple config maps from this in the first place, because they have the behavior create in the base, but then all the other ones say merge. So when the error message that they're getting is saying that there's multiple objects that could accept a merge of this, so like incoming objects, it sounds like there's a duplicate somehow, and I don't quite understand why that would be.
It seems really messy. Each environment consists of multiple clusters with different flavors of my app.
Deb C01. Oh, is this because they're using a name suffix in one of the layers there? So you end up with a config. You end up with a config map A and config map B, basically, and then he's kind of using a diamond structure, perhaps. They're generating in the base, then suffixing in 2 layers here, and then bring them back together and wanting to patch all of the incoming. Is that what's going on? It would probably be easier if we could actually browse the file structure and look through it instead of trying to connect the dots here. But that, Natasha, what do you think? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, that's my guess too. It sees both of them and then it doesn't know which one to merge with.
Yeah.
Maybe it will be worth asking the author to prepare I don't know, zip or whatever with an example and the sample commands that he's using to get to his stage. It seems.
Yeah, ask for a test repo that we can play with, right?
Exactly. I mean, anything that you can literally just run and see what he actually means. But I'm personally confused, but I'm not a customized expert in any way. So
Yeah, I think I agree with Eddie that merge all would not be the solution that we would recommend. I expect this will become a support issue where we're trying to figure out what to recommend that they should do with their repo structure. As opposed to a feature request for that particular workaround.
I'll type a reply. I'll ask them for a repo and more on their use case.
Okay. It was an associated PR, and this is actually from a colleague of mine. So let's see. I'm gonna take a quick look at the PR. It seems reasonable, though. I'm going to accept the issue, and I'm already assigned on the PR, so I'll take care of that. Natasha, do you know if Fiona is intending to work on this herself?
I can ask her. I think this is a very small change, so I think she would be fine with that.
I don't see any reason not to try it. Seems like a good idea. I'll accept the issue. Ooh, panic.
Oh, I remember this one. Somewhere they're having like the namespace is just empty, like it says namespace : and then nothing, and they're saying that that panics. So I was curious what kubectl does in that situation, and maybe we could handle it the same way.
If I remember correctly, we will treat empty namespace as is, which basically means as if you've never specified one. So if you have one particular namespace in your kubeconfig, it will inherit that one. Or whatever you have through flags. So, but yeah, I can understand that a panic is never a good approach, even if it's a mistake on the user side. But I guess we could just default depending on what the possibilities of kustomize are. I don't know, either from a higher level kustomize file, or just throw an error and abort the processing, complaining that the field is empty. I think either approach is fine.
Does valid YAML require that to be set to a tilde? Right, isn't that how YAML represents, hey, this key is here, but there's no actual value, please don't blow up? I don't actually know, but I thought that's what the tilde was for.
I'm not sure. It does sound like it's probably not valid, but I agree with much of that. Like, we shouldn't panic when we're given invalid data. trying to read through the backtrace here, see when it's happening. It looks like potentially very early, or no, name reference transformer.
I'm spinning up a client cluster right now. I'll see if I can reproduce it.
Well, if I don't know how this method looks like, but if the namespace wasn't specified, I would either default or just complain if it's required, which it is for role binding.
Okay, cube control does not panic by itself.
Phew, that's good.
Yeah.
No, but it should theoretically either default to the namespace that you have in your kubeconfig, which by default is default, or it will pick the namespace from the flag or the file that you have.
Just gonna try to confirm this really quick at the customer's level.
On the other hand, I'm surprised that something like that would only appear now. Maybe something has changed in the method, or nobody tested that bit.
I reproduced, so this is valid.
Well, that's good because we can go into the debugger then if it's easy to reproduce.
Yep. I just threw the resources from the test case in and as input and like didn't do anything else but import them in the file and it blows up. So I'm gonna triage accept this kind bug, and yeah, that is probably fairly approachable to, like, I'll just comment that we shouldn't panic. We don't need to do something great here because it's not valid. The input isn't valid, but we really shouldn't panic. All right.
Katrina, Bill volunteered for the previous one, 4240.
Oh, excellent. Yes, absolutely. I will assign you. Thank you. I wasn't able to assign you because you're not an org member yet, but it tagged you on the issue, so hopefully that gives you a breadcrumb to it. So just getting started reading this next one here. That's interesting. They want to use the get repo from a local context, right? We deliberately prevent something extremely similar to that, right? With the loader restrictions, where you can't reference a customization that's just somewhere else on your local machine. It will give you a loader error. It wants you to have everything encapsulated under the customization root. And I feel like this feature request would break that. That said, we do have a "this is dangerous" style flag that lets you disable the loader. But it's not something we want to encourage. What do you think, Natasha?
Yeah, I agree. This seems like a pretty niche use case.
Looks like they have a PR.
Oh, really? I didn't notice that.
Looks like it's a one string change.
Yeah, sometimes one string change can lead to very bad behavior. So I'll be cautious about the one line change. I'll probably check what Katrina said about if we have specific rules in place. Then I would be inclined to close this as well. We don't want to break that rule.
Yeah. I'll respond to this after. I need to look up where in the docs we explain that. This is another case where actually pasting the input into a file structure would help us understand it, I think. I'm not sure if what they're trying to do should work, but the results they're getting are strange if that's in fact what's happening. It says one of them gets a properly suffix config map that gets referenced, and the other one, it doesn't pick up the suffix at all, which that's inconsistent, so that shouldn't be happening.
Well, the inconsistency can be explained by the fact that he has configs and resources in one place, but he doesn't in the other base customization YUM. Not sure, not being an expert in customize again, whether it's sufficient to have it just at the root and that's it, and it should pick up properly everything, or whether he should have this line also over here.
Well spotted. Which way around does it say? Base one, actually, base two references the correct thing in base one. Doesn't get transformed. Base two. Base one, okay, yeah, that lines up with what you just said.
Yeah, so I guess he's just missing this line in his first customization YUM file.
Yeah, I guess so. I wonder why he's also importing it at the
At
top.
the
It
root.
sounds like he's
Yeah,
importing it 3 times. Yeah,
yeah, it's possible that it's not necessary over here and it should be only inside of those base customization YUM, and the root should only point to the base one and base two.
yeah. Okay, I'll respond to this one as well. Yeah. I think you're right about what's going on there. More anchor issues. Extend anchor. Is this an exact duplicate of one of them?
Yeah, it's probably a duplicate of one of the previous ones. I can't remember which one, but looks like so.
Yeah, that error message, the map interface to interface is from the other one too.
Yeah, that is unfortunately an error that comes up in it. That was the original message when we didn't support anchors at all as well. It's not a very helpful error. Yeah, so they're just using the, yeah, this is the exact same error and input syntax as number 4125. So I'm going to mark it as a duplicate of that, assuming that was the correct sequence. Yeah, the other one's older, so I'm going to close this as a duplicate. Okay. So interestingly, the person ends up concluding that this isn't what they were supposed to be doing anyway. Am I understanding correctly that they want, they basically want to merge the contents of those under a single config map key instead of multiple config map keys?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. They'd like to combine all of them.
Is there a way to modify the key name?
I thought there was. Let me look.
Yeah, it is also possible to define a key to set a name different than the file name. I don't know if that's going to work if you set it, the key, the same key multiple times, but that is in our documentation. I'm going to link them to that. Oh, this is secret generator. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Actually, the secret generator docs don't mention that option. But if I remember the code correctly, both are generated the same way, so that the option likely exists. I'll go confirm that before I write the comment though. Maybe let's look at one more and I'll just follow up on that after as well.
Isn't the problem here that we are going through everything with a name of Nginx? And this is confusing that he's using the Nginx name for both the config map and the deployment as well. Although theoretically it shouldn't conflict, but it seems like that's the culprit.
Yeah, I think the person who commented below is likely correct in that we use a static set of paths to figure out where we should be replacing when we do the name transformation, like where to target. And we are in fact targeting that path. Even though in this example, it looks like the config map isn't even what that resource name field is talking about. So that does seem incorrect to have that path be one of the targets, because how we can't know just by looking at that path and the name that's at that path that it's actually referring to the resource of the kind that we're intending. So that I think that comment is correct. Not sure how we could handle that properly, given that these rules target multiple resources. I would be inclined to leave it alone rather than transform it. I feel like that's correct more of the time. But if that rule has been used for a while, it could be a bad breaking change. Let me see where that came in recently. 10 months ago. Just looking at the PR this came from. I think this is incorrect, actually. If you look at, here's the PR that I found. Let's paste it in the chat. It's called out as being a generic reference, and yet we accepted the patch that assumes it's a config map. So I don't think that should have been accepted in hindsight there. Anyone else have an opinion about that?
So I guess like if it can be a config map, then wouldn't there be cases where we want it to get the suffix? Like how will we differentiate?
The problem that I see with this is that it can target, so it can target by name, but it can also target it multiple resource kinds of that name. So say we have a deployment and a config map that all in the input have name Nginx, and we have this rule that targets anything that deployments, config maps, stateful sets, et cetera, with name Nginx. We can't just transform that name, right? Even though it legitimately does refer to the config map in the input, because it also refers to the deployment in the input, which now doesn't have the same name as the config map anymore. So even if we were to check that field and say like, oh, yes, this is indeed targeting the V1 group and kind config map, we would also have to verify that it targets that exclusively before doing the mutation. And then if it doesn't, then we would have to blow up. Like we would have no way of making it correct, if I'm understanding correctly. And I don't think even that logic of like, let's look at some other fields and see what their values are and make a decision based on this aggregate information about whether or not to transform. Like, I don't think that's supported by the transformer that handles this.
Yeah, that's true. It's not.
I would say it would be better to not be doing this Like it's more harmful to have the transformation, assuming it's always a config map when it very well might not be, and it very well might be targeting multiple things, than it is to sometimes not target a config map when we should be, because like we're supposed to be doing semantic transformations, right? And in this case, it can't be using the logic that we're currently using to do the replacement. We are out of time though.
Do you want to pull in the original PR author and ask them to give their thoughts? I can write that up if you want. Okay.
That would be great. Thanks, Eddie. All right. Thanks everyone for coming today. We got through a lot of issues, and see you at the next one.